Welcome to Keystone University. This is a quick summary of our claim that the legend of Atlantis is based on Stone Age Ireland, as is the Greek legend of Hyperborea. We are saying that Ireland is the source of a megalithic mother culture, the mound builders and the megalithic builders. Here we see a mound in Greece, mounds in Korea, mounds in America, identical to the mounds found in Ireland. Here we have stone circles found in Egypt from a civilization that predated the pyramid builders by thousands of years. Here we have stone circles in India, Gambia in Africa, and of course in Ireland. Here we have dolmens in North America, in Israel, just an hour from Jerusalem, in Korea, and in Ireland. Clearly this is evidence of a megalithic mother culture. Here we have the largest dolmen on earth found in Ireland. The capstone weighs an incredible 100 tonne. Here we have a megalithic map. While megaliths are found all over the world, the shaded areas is where they are found in the highest concentration. And it's blatantly obvious by looking at this map that the builders arrived by boat. They are all along the seaboard. They are also found in these islands, all along here, down across Africa. We are saying that the mother culture is Ireland. And the legend of Atlantis, an island in the Atlantic Ocean of advanced Stone Age people, came from the legends and the tales of old Ireland. At the time the legend of Atlantis was written, the Greek knowledge of geography was pretty limited, and the legend of Atlantis, as well as the legend of Hyperborea, both contain grains of truth from the stories and the history of old Ireland. Here we have Newgrange, the spectacular circular sun temple of the old Irish. To give you an idea of its scale, this is a side view. It's truly an enormous construction. According to Plato, the Atlanteans had a circular temple with a strange barbaric appearance. In other Greek writings, we are told that the Hyperboreans have a circular temple on their island, and they also have their own unique natural language. The legends of Atlantis and Hyperborea, both found in Greek mythology, are based on Stone Age Ireland, the megalithic mother culture. Newgrange is older than the pyramids, it's older than Stonehenge, and we are certain that in the fullness of time it will be proven to be the oldest temple on earth. This is the location of Newgrange. Around Newgrange and inside it, there are almost 100 giant boulders like this, made of a particular type of stone called greywacke, which is only found in Clogherhead in County Louth. It is the only place on Ireland where that stone is found. That stone was shipped in Stone Age boats down the Irish Sea, up the River Boyne against the current of the river, all the way to Brunaboyna and Newgrange. This is an historically accepted fact. This is well established that these stones were taken to Newgrange from Clogherhead by boat. This is a reconstruction of a Stone Age Irish boat made using the exact same tools and materials available during the Stone Age. There's no question the Stone Age Irish had boats. There's no question that Newgrange was built long before the pyramids, and it's ignorant to think that the Stone Age Irish did not use these boats to sail the wider seas. In Ignatius Donnelly's book Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, he had this to say about Ireland. There are many evidences that the old world recognised Ireland as possessing a very ancient civilization. In the Sanskrit books it's referred to as Hiriana, the island of the sun, of sun worship. In other words, as the centre of that religion which was shared by all the ancient races of Europe, Asia, Africa and America. It is believed that Ireland was the garden of Phoebus, which is Hyperborea, of Western mythologies. Sun worship was the first major religion of the world, and it stretched from the homeland of Ireland all across the world. Ancient Egypt, Persia, India, Rome, Europe, America, North and South, all over the world. The ancients worshipped nature, and the sun represented light, the light on which they depended on for food and crops and for all life. In Greek writings, we find records of Abras the Hyperborean, who taught Pythagoras and who conversed with him and was thought to have been a great prophet, healer and teacher by the early Greeks. In Old Irish poetry, we found a record of Abras the Irish Druid. Abras was one of the Tuatha Danann, one of the great tribes in Irish historical legends. And we can see here that Abras, Lemas, well skilled in magic, were the names of our druids, and they lived in the reign of Garman the Happy. Abras the Talephion at Tanis. Tanis is a legendary Greek city that was only discovered by archaeologists in the last few years. Up until this, it was just myth. Here we have Irish records of a druid called Abras going to Greece. According to the Greeks, Hyperborea was an island in the North Atlantic with a circular temple that was governed by the Boreads. Boreadoc is an Irish word which means noble chieftain or leader. In the Encyclopedia of Architecture by Joseph Gwilt, one of the timeless classics in architecture, he has these stunning things to say. Through the pillars of Heracles, the language of the Western world was the same, and one system of letters, that of the Irish Druids, pervaded the whole, and was common to the British Isles, Gaul, which is France, Italy, Greece, Syria, Arabia, Persia, and Hindustan, which is India. In Anacalypsis by Godfrey Higgins, he says, I have proved by a great variety of evidence that the 16 or 17 letter alphabet of the Irish was the same as that of the ancient Samaritans, Phoenicians, Hebrew, Chaldee, Persian, Etruscan, Greeks, and Latin. By a careful comparison of the names of the different letters in the Irish alphabet with the Samaritan, Hebrew, and Greek, it will appear almost certain that they have all been named after the trees which now grow in the latitude of England. In other words, trees from Ireland. Lastly, the Samaritan and Hebrew are unquestionably the same as the Irish. Again, I ask, how come these Hebrew letters bear the name of Irish trees? For anyone who thinks this is pseudoscience, gibberish, rubbish, please answer that question. Why is letters in the ancient Hebrew language called after Irish trees? There is no way for accounting for these extraordinary coincidences except by supposing an original alphabet called after trees. That's the Ogham language which we're about to discuss. He goes on to say, it is impossible to believe that the Asiatics accidentally called their letters after Irish trees. I think it's pretty clear that the Hebrew letters, and of course the taken from them, were originally called after the Irish. The ancient rabbis had a tradition that the names of the Hebrew letters had the meanings of different trees. This is the tree alphabet of the Druids. It's called the Ogham alphabet. You see that there's what was called a feather at the top, there's a stalk down the centre, and on each side there was strokes. This alphabet has 20 letters. It's thought the original had actually 15 and the vowels were added later. This is the Shigar idol, which was found in Siberia, Russia. It's 11,500 years old. That's older than the time that Atlantis is supposed to have sunk, and it's clearly Ogham writing. Here we've got the feather, we've got the stalk, we've got the straight strokes. There's a slight variance as the strokes go both sides, but it's clearly Ogham writing. Here in North America, Vermont, USA, we find Ogham writing. On the Blanchard Stone, there are many, many examples of Ogham writing in North America. There are also many rock carvings like this one found in Georgia with circular spirals which are identical to those found in Ireland, particularly in Kerry and also in the Boyne Valley. In Anacalypsis, Godfrey Higgins lists the Irish alphabet, compares it to the Greek, the Hebrew and the Arabic. And you can see there's stunning similarities between them all. In this writing, The History of the Celtic Language, we find some incredible statements from some very eminent scholars as to the true antiquity of the Old Irish language. This gentleman, Dr. H. Blair, it is the oldest language perhaps in the world. It was the language of Ireland, Scotland, England, Spain and France for many generations, although now confirmed to the mountains of Wales, Ireland, Scotland. It is the oldest language perhaps in the world. Another witness in that book gave this opinion, The ancient Scottish or Irish is a valuable dialect of the Celtic, and besides its beauties is of incredible use to illustrate the antiquities, language and laws of many other nations, especially those of Italy, Greece, Palestine, Canaan, and besides other places in Asia, Europe, Africa and America. This is a bold and sweeping assertion, pronouncing that the Celtic is the key to the antiquities, languages and laws of the entire globe. He also demonstrates this in the sequel to his work. The Round Towers of Ireland by Henry O'Brien. Again, we find the same thing. In the Irish language, which as being that of ancient Persia or Iran, must be the oldest in the world, of which Hebrew is a distinct branch, a relative. And this primordial tongue, Old Irish, is the nursery of science, religion, and of philosophy. It's pretty obvious that the Irish involvement in Stone Age history has been removed for political reasons, mostly by Roman popes and English kings. In this writing, we see a comparison between the languages of Old Ireland, Egypt, the Hebrew, and the Sanskrit, the Indians. I also just want to point out, in this book, they discuss the Ogham tree alphabet of the Irish, lately found in an ancient Arabic manuscript in Egypt. So here we compare the Hebrew and the Chaldee to the Irish alphabet, and as you can see, there is enormous similarities. All of these books are available freely online for you to check these out yourself. Here we see a comparison between the Irish and the Hindustan, as it was called at the time, the Indian language. Again, enormous similarities. There are huge similarities between the languages of Old India and Old Ireland, and those with the same language had the same origin. Language is like living history. Here we have a comparison between Egyptian and Old Irish, and again we find enormous similarities. Speaking of the Egyptians, in his Makers of Civilization, Lawrence Waddell discusses the real tomb of Pharaoh Menes. Now, the conventional story is that Egyptian Pharaoh King Menes was died in Egypt after being killed by a hippopotamus. However, there is very compelling evidence that he sailed to Ireland, the ancestral home of the Egyptians, and died there. This is a transcript of writings that was found inside his empty Egyptian tomb. Now, rather than read all of this, I'll just cut to the chase. The Pharaoh, the deceased, the commander-in-chief of the ships, made the complete course to the end of the sunset land, going in ships. Ireland is the sunset land, also known as the land of the setting sun. He completed the inspection of the western lands. He built there a holding in Urani land. At the Lake of the Peak, fate pierced him by a hornet. It says here wasp. More than likely it was a bee. This tablet, setup of hanging wood, is dedicated to his memory. Great Admiral, this world emperor, Pharaoh Menes, in his old age, went on a voyage of exploration and made a course to the furthest western sunset land in the Western Ocean. The Egyptians called the Atlantic the Western Ocean. The Greeks called the Atlantic the Atlantis Ocean. So Atlantis really means Atlantic. In the Western Ocean, in the sunset land, he met his tragic death. His so-called tomb in Egypt was empty. The place name of this island in the far Western Ocean was Urani, suggesting the place of his death and real tomb as Éireann, Ireland. I have demonstrated elsewhere that this sunset land occurs in Ireland, engraved on a prehistoric cup marks at Newgrange on the Boyne Valley near Drogheda. He also talks about how on the boulder stones at Knockmany, the Hill of Many in Clogher, County Tyrone, this is where Pharaoh Menes is buried. The inscriptions on the chief stand and boulder stones at Knockmany, which is in County Tyrone, were practically identical in writing and contents with those of the empty tomb of Menes in Egypt. It thus appears that the land of Urani, the land of the sunset, the land of the setting sun in the far west, to which Menes penetrated in ships and met his tragic death, was the furthest western land of Europe Ireland, and that his tomb survives on Knockmany in County Tyrone. Knockmany has never been excavated. Neither has Scotty's grave in Kerry, which is widely believed to be the resting place of an Egyptian pharaoh's daughter. Nor indeed has over 100,000 Stone Age mounds, forts and monuments covering the entire island of Ireland. It must be the most unexcavated place on earth. Speaking of Egypt, this is the mummy of Ramesses II, Pharaoh Ramesses II, or Ramesses the Great. Clearly he's got reddish blonde hair, and scientists have conclusively proven that his hair was naturally red. Thousands of red and fair-haired mummies have been found in Egypt. This red-haired mummy was found in China. This red-haired mummy was found in Peru. This one was found in Denmark. So here we have the four main continents: Europe, America, Asia, Africa. Red-haired mummies are found all across the world. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, we find this interesting quote: "The mummified form of the god, the greatly beloved, with red hair." A red-haired Egyptian mummy, just like Ramesses. This is the Atlantic coastline, the cliffs of Moher in Ireland. People have assumed that the legendary island of Atlantis lies at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, but science has ruled that out as a possibility. The Atlantic seabed has been mapped many times. There is no sunken island, and looking for a lost fantasy island is just that, a fantasy. Plato's legend of Atlantis is clearly exaggerated, but at its heart is a grain of truth. And an ancient island in the Atlantic that does exist is a lot more credible than an island that doesn't. The main reason the academic mainstream does not take the legend of Atlantis seriously is because they know a sunken island in the Atlantic is not scientifically possible. But an ancient island in the Atlantic that does exist is a lot more logical than an island that doesn't. In recent years, scientists from a Norwegian university have made a huge breakthrough concerning the Ice Age. They have now proven that the Atlantic Gulf Stream, which laps Ireland's shore with warm water, did not stop during the Ice Age. You will also notice on this map that Britain is joined onto Europe. At the time Atlantis was said to have sunk around 11,500 years ago, Britain was joined onto Europe by the piece of land called Doggerland. Ireland was the only large Atlantic island off the coast of Europe. The Gulf Stream did not stop during the Ice Age, and this is important for many reasons. Firstly, it proves that Ireland was habitable for hundreds of thousands of years. Yes, there was ice sheets in Ireland. Yes, there was glaciers, but it was habitable. Ireland has thousands of species of unique flora and fauna and freshwater fish, which can only be explained by the island having never fully frozen over. But the main reason this is important is Ireland's ancient Stone Age history has been written on the basis that Ireland was completely frozen over during the Ice Age, which is incorrect. And any time an artifact is found that goes against that, it is put to one side. For example, this photograph was taken in the Irish National Museum, and here we have a 300,000 to 400,000 year old flint axe that was found in Inishmore, County Galway. Beside it, we have a 300,000 to 400,000 year old flint flake that was found in County Louth. Because it's falsely assumed that Ireland was frozen over during the Ice Age, these artefacts are assumed not to be proof of human habitation, and the bizarre explanation that's provided is that these artefacts were arrived in Ireland by ice sheets. Nonsense. There have been some stunning new discoveries in recent years in Ireland. This is Newgrange here, and all around it, all these new structures has been found. Also, they have found Stone Age boats and a Stone Age quay. This is Dronehenge, one of the most spectacular discoveries, and this is an artist's impression of what it looked like. This henge is over twice the diameter of Stonehenge, making it the largest henge on Earth. 4,000-year-old bog butter was recently found. It was still edible. That butter is over 1,000 years older than the city of Rome. The Irish Tailteann Games were in existence. They were founded around 1,000 years before the Greek Olympic Games. And there is many records of the Tailteann Games and of Greek merchants attending them. And when the Olympics were finally established 1,000 years later, they used the same bylaws that the Irish had been using for centuries. The brutal truth is Ireland's history has been written by her enemies. The Church of Rome did everything they possibly could to remove all records of the Druids, while the British Empire, when it invaded Ireland, spent the best part of 1,000 years burning every book, artefact and historical record it could find. They are the people who wrote Ireland's history. Ireland's history has been written by her enemies. If you want to find out more, this book is now available on Amazon. It's available online, and we go into this entire subject in a lot of detail. Keystone is a new university. We do not pretend to be an old school traditional university. There are 28,000 universities on earth, and we are not like any of them. We don't run 3-year long-winded programs for teenagers. We run 3-day highly intensive seminars for adults. Our 3 main seminars: Enterprise, we teach you how to master the arts of business; Empower, we teach you how to awaken the genius within; and Enigma, where you explore the great mysteries. Each of these programs is 3 days long. They're run once a year in Dublin, Ireland, and the material is exclusive to Keystone. One final thing, we have 3 rules of the game at Keystone. Number 1, do not believe a word we say. Think for yourself. Whether you agree with what we have said or not is not important. What's important is that you think for yourself, you question the research, and you do your own thinking. Number 2, before you make up your mind, open it. Obviously, our material goes completely against the mainstream opinion. Before you make up your mind, open it. And finally, you have to wait for the mainstream to catch up. If the Atlantis Ireland theory is right, then the mainstream academia is wrong. And the high priests of academia will line up to ridicule us, ridicule our organisation, ridicule the legend of Atlantis itself. But at the end of the day, the truth is the truth. Follow the facts, and you will find that the evidence leads right back to Stone Age Ireland. Thank you.